animated films, bad animation in films, etc. This has come up on the channel a few times in the past. Last summer I reviewed Planet 51, which turned out to be one of the most popular videos on my channel, and with that came a few comments mentioning a similar film called Escape from Planet Earth. Escape from Planet Earth is a 2012 animated sci-fi comedy film, directed by storyboard artist Cal Brunker. I actually didn't watch it as a kid, but it appears to have a celebrity cast, and mixed reviews at best. But is Escape from Planet Earth that bad? How does it fare in comparison to Planet 51? Let's find out. Without further ado, on with the review.
Polos is life, 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 sleep all night and then Polos is life.
Well, that's one way to start this review. Moving on, the film begins on the planet Narlag, where one of our protagonists, Scorch Supernova, is tasked with saving a group of babies.
You haven't run off and done something reckless, have you?
Gary! We've got a problem!
Scorch is voiced by Brendan Fraser, and his older brother Gary, voiced by Rob Corddry, works at Mission Control and serves as our narrator. To make a long story short, Scorch manages to make his way out of the Narlag lair just in time with the babies, all while demonstrating the dynamic between him and Gary. Scorch is brawny with little brains, and Gary is brainy with little brawn. It's a tale as old as time. These two are also joined by a sentient computer named Mr. James Bing, who's voiced by Ricky Gervais and comes with cheesy references.
The name's Bing, by the way. James Bing.
Scorch gets a hero's welcome when he returns to his home planet, Barb, before their boss, Lena, tells Gary and his son Kip that Scorch's next mission will be taking place on the Dark Planet, a place that no one ever comes back from, in response to an SOS call. Ooh, spooky, I wonder which planet that could be. I'm getting weird vibes from Lena, to be honest. While Gary doesn't seem too enthusiastic about this, Scorch doesn't quite grasp the gravity of the situation and just seems to view it as a way to make an even bigger name for himself.
No one has ever come back alive!
While Mr. James Bing roasts us,
We have also deduced that the people of this planet choose leaders according to the oddity and profusion of their facial hair.
Gary overhears Kip talking about how he finds Scorch way cooler than his dad, which is a total punch to the gut to Gary, of course. To make matters worse, Scorch insists on going ahead with the mission despite Gary's protests, and I can't lie, I find it really weird how immediate the mission is given that Scorch literally just returned from his last one. Shouldn't he have time to rest due to how taxing space travel is and all, also for the sake of workers' rights? It's suspicious. I understand that the filmmakers could have a limited amount of time to convey their story, but they could have at least thrown in a time skip or something. The brothers get into an argument over Scorch going to the Dark Planet, and Gary ends up quitting and going home. I guess their whole power struggle will be the main conflict of the movie, huh?
Well, yes!
Gary, Kip, and Gary's wife, Kira, watch a live stream of Scorch landing on Earth as he comes across a 7-Eleven. He mistakes a tube man for one of the missing aliens, and I have to say its plastic looks way too thick and shiny. Scorch is then apprehended by human authorities, although not without putting up a fight. Gary immediately regrets quitting, and discovers that night that Kip has escaped in the hopes of rescuing his uncle. Kira and Gary go after him, but Gary decides to go after his brother without the rest of his family anyway. Everything so far feels a little rushed, so I don't really know how I'm supposed to feel at the moment. Gary ends up crashing near Area 51 as the ship begins a self-destruct sequence, and we're properly introduced to our main antagonist, General William T. Shanker, who I think is named for his voice actor, William Shatner, and his most well-known role, Captain James T. Kirk. He's kind of like a combination between General Grawl and Professor Kipple from Planet 51. A couple of guys call a news station and brag about a photo they took of Scorch, just before Gary walks in, terrifying them and himself. They offer him a Slurpee as a peace offering, and he ends up with brain freeze after drinking it too quickly. Just then, Gary gets apprehended too. How did the feds arrive so quickly? Anyways, the government show him some strange 1950s-esque PSA on staying in Area 51, before finding out that he's a genius using a brain scanner. He's taken to General Shanker, who places a shock collar on him and tells him he must work to be released, before getting some kind of romantic call from his secret accomplice, Lena. Now imprisoned, Gary meets the other aliens, Thurman, voiced by George Lopez, Doc, voiced by Craig Robinson, and Io, voiced by Jane Lynch. The aliens have each invented pieces of modern tech that humans consider breakthroughs. Apparently. Thurman was a professor that invented the touchscreen, Io was a librarian that invented the search engine, and Doc invented social networking after becoming a famous talk show host. Is it just me, or is this feeling a little cringe? Even by 2012 standards, these breakthroughs feel a bit outdated, and not that this stuff isn't cool and all, but couldn't they have picked inventions that are a little more groundbreaking? Back on Barb, Kira finds the recording of Gary before the ship self-destructs, and announces to Kip, and us, that only someone working in the Space Administration could have set that off. Lena arrives and arrests Kira, but Kip is small and fast enough to evade capture until later. Gary ends up finding Scorch, and they begin arguing right off the bat. The group goes to lunch, which is being served by your run-of-the-mill grey aliens, and at least one of the meals being served is sentient. It appears quite happy, and I'm both curious and afraid of the logistics of that. The brothers start a very anticlimactic food fight, which ends with Shanker taking the group to the base's peace shield, a giant asteroid gun that's only missing its power source. The floor is covered with signatures of aliens that have come and gone, and Doc reassures Gary that Shanker probably let the other aliens go. I know they don't know Shanker and Lena's dastardly plan, but why would that guy keep his word if he's willing to kidnap aliens? Shanker reveals the gun's power source, a reactor fueled by an inexplicably overpowered substance named plutonium, and has the aliens fire the gun at Halley's Comet. The test run is a success, and the aliens celebrate being allowed to go home, but Scorch takes the reactor core and smashes it in front of everyone when Gary complains about its capabilities, because he's just that dumb. Shanker does the sci-fi equivalent of cuffing them using the Greys before scolding them. Gary insists that he's saved the universe, so Shanker locks him in a container and freezes him in some kind of jelly substance. Again, this just feels so rushed and bizarre. The brothers don't even know what Shanker's plan is, so he'll always be one step ahead. They're really jumping the gun here, pun unintended. Gary tells Shanker that he can fix the reactor, and he has a heartfelt moment in his cell while thinking about his family. After a montage of Gary fixing the reactor, he sends for Shanker, who then tells him that his father was killed by those three Greys during the Roswell incident. This explains why Shanker hates aliens so much, and the dirt he has on the Greys. Shanker then explains that he plans to blow up every planet in the universe except Earth with a lifetime supply of plutonium that Lena is shipping to him, before freezing Gary beside Scorch. Kip reveals to his mother that he actually let Lena's guards catch him on purpose, and has snuck in some explosive blast tape. He uses it to blow them out of the cell, and Mr. James Bing tries to talk Lena out of the whole villain thing she has going on.
And the stress is aging you, if I might be.
Shut up.
Shanker attempts to blow up Barb in front of the other aliens, proving the Supernova brothers right in their suspicion, but Gary actually rigged the gun to self-destruct, with one of the blasts breaking the shock collars and freeing the frozen aliens. Enraged, Shanker breaks up with Lena, who attempts to kill Kira by opening the airlock, but Kira is able to put a stop to this pretty much immediately. Again, it's anticlimactic conflict after anticlimactic conflict in this movie. Kip flies Scorch's ship remotely and manages to outrun some US military pilots, but Shanker uses Scorch's suit to trap the ship in a tractor beam. The brothers jump one after the other to turn the tractor beam off at the source, but it looks like all three of them are about to fall to their doom. The Roswell Greys rescue all of them with their telekinesis, and reveal that they can in fact talk.
Turns out he was a psychopathic megalomaniac bent on destroying every known form of intelligent life in the universe.
Scouser was definitely an interesting choice. Our heroes end up landing safe back home, and 3 days later, Scorch marries his girlfriend Gabby. Well, that was quick. I guess when you're a famous astronaut, there's no time to waste. Pretty much all the nice characters are invited to the wedding too. So, what did I think of Escape from Planet Earth overall? I feel kinda bad harshly criticising a kids' film, but it just came across as a bit low effort to me. The animation isn't offensive to me, and like Planet 51, it has that we're not Disney style thing going on. I had a huge problem with the character motivations in this film, as aspects of the main conflict seem like we're just rushing through them. The main example of this is when Scorch smashes the reactor. I get that he's dumb, but it just makes no sense to do so. And he literally says, "I did it because you're evil."
You failed at your evil plans, because that's what villains do.
You don't even know what this guy is plotting, and can the dialogue get any more on the nose? The cast of the film came as quite a surprise to me, as the names in the credits were familiar, but I didn't recognise a lot of them from their voices alone. Apparently Jonathan Morgan Haidt of Bedtime Stories fame voiced Kip, and I might actually review that movie at some point. I can't say that I enjoyed the comedic aspects of the film for the most part, and while I enjoyed some of the jokes,
Landing gear deployed. Landing gear destroyed.
a lot of the line delivery in this film is so flat that I can't tell whether the character is supposed to sound intentionally sarcastic or not.
I'm pretty good at this. I could do this all day. Whee!
This was especially true for a lot of the Scorch lines, which is really a shame because I do like a lot of the films that Brendan Fraser has been in, and he can be funny. I think he's a very physically comedic actor, and sometimes that doesn't always translate when voicing this kind of macho character. It could also just be a case of bad directing. Either way, it just didn't really work for me. Shatner also had quite flat delivery, but I think that's just Shatner, to be honest. I can totally see where the comparisons between Planet 51 and Escape from Planet Earth came from, as their plots are the inverse of each other and they were released around the same time. I must say that I do prefer Planet 51 because the writing was much funnier, less on the nose, and the characters' feelings and motives were just much more believable. These problems may be explained by what the Weinstein brothers were accused of during a lawsuit following the film's release. According to an article by The Hollywood Reporter, filmmakers Tony Leach and Brian Innefeld said that the Weinsteins were two out-of-control movie executives who sabotaged what should have been a highly profitable movie through a potent combination of hubris, incompetence, profligate spending, and contempt for contractual obligations. The plaintiffs claimed that they were owed 20% of the film's profits, an estimated $50 million, but that the Weinsteins forced 17 script rewrites, which inflated the budget by keeping over 200 animators on payroll unnecessarily, and that they tried to pay the plaintiffs $500,000 in hush money in an attempt to stop them from coming out about this. The Weinstein Company also entered into a funding and security agreement with Financiers JTM, granting JTM 25% of gross receipts and 100% of foreign gross receipts, which Leach and Innefeld argued violated their previous agreement. The lawsuit ended up being settled when both parties' lawyers filed a motion of discontinuance in the case. Overall, while Escape from Planet Earth isn't horrible, I definitely wouldn't go out of my way to watch it again. The humour falls flat, the animation is forgettable, and it's riddled with cliches. It's not an offensive movie, but there are many other movies that have done the same kind of story much better. Well, that's all for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.
The blue and green ones are my favorite kind, but I'll eat the colored ones from time to time, 'cause polos is life.